So I've had a lot of people recently that have been not particularly thrilled with some of the content that I've been putting out there. And, ultimately at the end of the day, I think that a lot of us have different perspectives. Some of us are into cards and we are just collectors. You know, um, the slab that a card is in doesn't matter to us. We don't care if it's in a slab at all. Some of us care very much. The grade matters to us very much. I've told the story about how my dad didn't like the look of his cards in slabs, so he cracked them out of PSA slabs because he likes his cards raw. Um, and some of us are totally buying cards because we think it's a good investment. We think that the value of the cards will go up. And what those people buy, what an investor would buy, is going to be completely different than what just a collector would buy. And the perspective from which we are at, from our interest, is going to completely change the perspective in which we view content, in which we have opinions that are formed. So maybe it's just that people don't, like my opinions, and that's okay. And maybe it's that the perspective of those people have a different opinion or a different perspective from mine. Check this out and tell me what you think. Are you a collector? Are you a investor, or are you somewhere in between? Let me know what you think.
So, are you an investor or are you a collector? Because I think there is a distinct difference, and I do think that depending on where you stand and what your whole point of being involved in this hobby is, it really would dramatically change your perspective on things, the companies that you go through, and sort of where you see yourself going forward. So, what is an investor? Well, if you are committing money for a financial return, if that is the point of why you are involved in cards, then you're an investor. I mean, look here. To commit money in order to earn a financial return, right? The key words there are financial return. To make use of current money to gain money in the future. That's an investor. Now, some people have no intention on getting cards now with their money now to potentially have a financial return, but an investor does. So, things to consider if you're an investor. The slab that sells for the most money, that's the grading company that you would most likely use. It doesn't matter as much to you, what the turnaround time is or, how cared about you feel by that company. You want, where are you going to make the most money? A fast turnaround time, yeah, that would matter, especially with modern cards, because how long is your money tied up? And, if it's a modern card, a player, things can change quickly. An injury, making the playoffs, winning a Super Bowl, that can affect prices very, very rapidly. So turnaround time would matter. The grade that a card gets could dramatically change the price and the value of the card. And that is something to be concerned about. So if you are an investor, it is extremely important what the grade is, because that matters to a lot of potential buyers. And because it matters to potential buyers, the prices are going to change dramatically, and this is a big deal for you. A condition like a high grade that has a low population and a low supply, that is something that is a big concern if you're not getting a high grade or the grade that you think you deserve. If you're a collector and a card gets a 5 instead of a 6, are you really concerned? Or if you buy a 5 instead of a 6, does that really matter? But it does to an investor. Now, an investor, you're really going to be looking at iconic cards, right? The cards that have a lasting feeling when you are buying them and having them. You're also interested in rookie cards of iconic players. So, a 51 Bowman Mays, his rookie card, that's a card you're going to be putting money into. You want a high grade Hank Aaron rookie card because of the potential value of it. So, rookie cards, iconic players, high grades, those things are going to matter more to an investor than they're going to matter to just a collector. A Roberto Clemente rookie card is a card that an investor might look into. A Babe Ruth in a high grade. A Jackie Robinson in a high grade. These are cards that investors would be wanting, not just wanting them, but wanting a higher grade. That when the card comes back as a 7 instead of an 8, it's a big, big deal if you're an investor. And that makes perfect sense. These are the iconic players. These are the iconic cards. These are the rookie cards. The higher grade matters a lot more. So when I'm talking about things like, hey, would you rather have a second year than a rookie card? An investor would go, are you crazy? Versus a collector. So a collector is somebody who wants a collection, like a stamp collector, like a coin collector. So a collector likes to acquire things. It's a collection. You want to have them. A collector is going to have a much different perspective than an investor. So I make comments sometimes because I'm a collector. And an investor would watch it and go, dude, you're insane. But a collector, the grading, it's more about getting authenticity that the card is real and protecting the card than it is about, needing it to be an 8 instead of a 7. Now, does a collector want it to be an 8? Of course. But if it's a 7 instead of an 8, they're not ruined by that. A collector cares a lot more about the look and the eye appeal of a card than the grade. They want a card that when they look at it, they go, oh, that's cool looking. And if the grade isn't a perfect grade, it's not a grade that is super high, that's okay. Collecting cards that you enjoy, of the players that you enjoy, with images that you enjoy, that's more important than the potential upside and potential increase in value. Do collectors want cards that could go up in value? Well, sure. But this 56 mantle is thrashed. But I'll tell you what, I'd love to have that card. It's well centered, it looks loved, and it's a 56 mantle. This Ty Cobb is a 2, but it's got bright colors, it's well centered, the corners, while rounded, aren't distracting. A collector would love that card. Iconic players who did a lot for the game, like Frank Robinson, in this SGC3, it's pretty well centered. It's not perfect, but it's a young Frank Robinson who did so much for the game. A Larry Doby, who is the first black player in the American League, did so much for the game. That's a guy you want his cards. SGC, SGC makes me feel valued. To me, SGC is sort of like the collector's company. It's the company who is going to answer my emails, who's going to get back to me quickly, who's going to respond to my emails, who is all about getting my card back to me because they know I want it back in my collection. They're kind of the collector's company. So a lot of people who are not so much worried about value are SGC people. So we have this huge group of collectors on the left, and then we have investors on the right. And right in between, right, there are some of us that fall in between. And if you fall in between, that's okay too. You can be a collector who also looks at it as a bit of an investment. And some of us aren't really sure. Are we collectors? Are we investors? Are we investors for a while, then we go back over to collectors? We might be changing our opinion, and that's okay. When I bought my house, I did not buy my house with the intention of selling my house, but I still want to buy a house that's a good investment. Some of us are collectors, but we want to also invest.
So do you have to identify as a collector or an investor? No, you don't. But my point here is we all have a different perspective. And if your perspective is an investor, you're going to see things through a completely different lens than someone who is a collector. The differences between the two can be fairly extreme, and you can be a hybrid of both. Again, when I buy anything, I want to get a good deal, but that doesn't mean I'm investing in it. I buy things that I'm planning on never selling, but you still want it to be worth something because you never know. Maybe you will sell it. Whenever we watch content, whenever we hear opinions, our context of our situation and the lens in which we view something will dramatically affect how we receive that information. When I say, wouldn't you rather have a second-year Pete Rose than a rookie Pete Rose? I'm not saying that a second-year Pete Rose should ever be worth the same amount as a rookie Pete Rose card. But if you're just a collector and you want a cool Pete Rose card, why do you feel the need to have the rookie card when you can have the second-year card, which is a really cool card? Does that mean that if you want the rookie card that you're an investor and not a collector? No, because I understand the idea of collecting rookie cards of stars as well. I get that. But again, we all have an infinite number of perspectives and opinions and backgrounds that affect where we're at. So when I share an opinion, sometimes I just want to throw out an idea and see what everybody thinks. And sometimes when I throw out an opinion, it's because the collector in me might really feel that way. And if you're a person who's looking at what the value is going to be someday, you might think my opinion is crazy. And from an investor's perspective, it probably is. So sometimes we'll look at things through the eyes of an investor, and sometimes we'll look at them through the eyes of a collector. There's not a right or a wrong answer, but when we are hearing other opinions or reading other people's opinions or comments, I just think it's important to consider that we all might be coming from a different perspective, and that's totally cool, and that's totally okay. So whether you're an investor or whether you're a collector, whether you're a collector of high-grade stuff or a collector of just having the stuff at all of that is cool. All of that is welcome. All of that is appreciated. Let me know. Are you a collector, or are you an investor, or are you somewhere in between? And have you changed your opinion and stance of where you were and where you are now? Appreciate you watching as always. Leave a comment below. I really like hearing from you and hearing where you're at and what you think.
If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I hope you will consider doing so. Leave a comment below. I look forward to hearing what you have to say.